Welcome, good afternoon. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. It's so great to see everyone in person and everyone joining us online on this wonderful but rather rainy Friday. But it is my pleasure to welcome Ann Sheets, President and CEO, retired of Campfire First Texas, for our invocation, followed by our national anthem. Ann?
Thank you. If you watched the inauguration on Wednesday, you heard 22-year-old Amanda Gorman make history when she became the youngest inaugural poet. For today's invocation, I thought it appropriate to share some of her piece, The Hill We Climb. Let us pray. We lift our gaze not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. We will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover. And every nook of our nation and every corner called our country, our people diverse and beautiful will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn balloons as we free it. For there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. Amen.
Thank you, and that was a wonderful speech indeed. Please be seated. Thank you very much. All right, now it's time for a new tradition that we have started, and that is reciting the four-way test. And I'd ask you to pay special attention to the four pillars. For those of you who may not have been, maybe your first time at Rotary, maybe a guest, Rotary was founded on these four pillars of the things that we think, we say, or we do. And remember, we have our Rotary Minority Business Award, and the judging criteria will be how well it fits in each pillar of the four-way test. So if you repeat with me, number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. Now, to help us welcome visiting Rotarians and guests, it's my pleasure to introduce our good friend, John Latta, founder of Orion Advisory Group, LLC. John?
Thank you, Carlo. Hello, we have two guests today. Margaret Savajan, guest of Greg Carter. Margaret. And Jan Norton. Hello, Jan, guest of Connie Blake.
Thank you, John. And if you're a guest joining us online, please type your name and who you are a guest of in the chat box there, and we'll be sure to reach out to you and give you a warm Rotary welcome. All right, it is now the moment that most of you have been waiting for. We have our newscast, and to do our newscast, I want to spotlight him here. This is our very own board member-elect, Bill Fairley. questionably dressed. He is the financial advisor. I don't know who would want to give you their money after dressed like that. He's a financial advisor of Fairly Wealth Management. Let's give him our traditional newscast welcome, shall we?
Thank you. Thank you, Carlo. I'm suffering a bit from a COVID cabin fever, but I'll be all right. I'll be all right. We'll all be all right. I had a friend ask me the other day about taking a shot, and I said, well, I've been taking a shot daily for weeks. All right, a few notes of interest from the news. Nationally, we inaugurated a new president. Well, actually, he's not real new. He's the oldest president to ever take office. In fact, he used the King James Bible for swearing in. Not a King James Bible, King James actual Bible. I'm not saying he's old, but Bernie Sanders calls him Pops. When asked who he most admires in history, he said, my good friend Abraham Lincoln. Whoa, sorry there. I kind of became Henny Youngman there for a second. Sorry. I saw several articles with advice on how best to watch the inauguration. Here's how I watched it. But in an effort to be safe, they sanitized the White House before Biden moved in. There's no truth to the rumors that that included an exorcism. In international news, it was reported in an effort to repurpose unused commercial property, authorities found a cannabis farm set up in the basement of a building in London's financial district. Some of our city council pounced on this idea to utilize some of our unused properties. For instance, Ann Zeta suggested using Sundance Square as an outdoor yoga studio. Wait, I think that's already being done, actually. Dennis Shingleton, perhaps showing his age, recommended we repurpose the old city hall as a speakeasy. Surprisingly, Junkus Jordan said the Bass Hall would make a, quote, killer shroom farm. Who knew? In local news, Betsy Price announced she would not seek re-election. This obviously led most everyone else to decide to run. It's a crowded field, folks. And those that couldn't run in Fort Worth apparently are running in Arlington. There will be a lot of turnover this year, second only to Amon Carter turning over in his grave after the Star-Telegram went to roughly 6 pages a day. In sports, it was announced the first ever female referee will be working the Super Bowl. Terry Bradshaw asked if that meant she would be vacuuming the field. Terry Bradshaw is now out of work. And now for something completely different, I'm going to get serious for just a second, assuming anything prior was funny. I was worried for our country this week after the events of January the 6th, and it would seem that we rose to the occasion as I prayed that we would, and I hope we can try to unite moving forward. I think that's our only chance. 2 quotes that I think are apropos of where we are. The first is from Walt Whitman, be curious, not judgmental. And Martin Luther King, whose birthday we just celebrated, said, we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. I choose love and the 4-way test. All right, folks, apparently it's going to rain for the foreseeable future, so stay dry and have a great weekend. Peace out, my fellow Rotarians.
Did I mention that Rotary is exclusively a group for business professionals? And despite that, we thank Bill Fairley for always taking a lighthearted look at the news. Thank you, Bill, for that outstanding newscast as always. Next up, we have a Blue Badge presentation. And for those of you that don't know, when you become a member at Rotary, you get a red badge. And after 6 acts of service, your red badge is magically converted to a blue badge. So it's my honor to give the blue badge to Lauren Prier. And Lauren, if I can ask you, we're going to go off script. If you can maybe tell us what your most memorable or significant act of service that you did to get this blue badge, I think we'd love to hear.
Sure, I think it's working with Aurora. You know, she is is a dedicated servant to our club, and it's been a real pleasure getting to know her a little bit better. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. And Lauren, thank you for the great work you do as Assistant Director of Capital Delivery for the City of Fort Worth. All right, now we're going to go into what may be my favorite time, and it's the member spotlight. So we will start with Bob Byers. He'll be joining us virtually. He is the director of the Fort Worth Botanic Gardens. A beautiful place if you haven't been, especially recently. He's been a member since May of 2020, and for those of you that might remember, member spotlights are an opportunity for us to get to know our fellow members that we don't see every once in a while. So Bob, I'm going to spotlight you. Feel free to come off mute and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Carlo. Well, I did actually first join Rotary at the Hot Springs National Park Rotary Club in Hot Springs in 1998 and was a member there until 2015. So I'm glad to be able to get back into Rotary since I moved here to Fort Worth. When I'm not at Rotary or here in the garden, I enjoy taking long walks with my two very spoiled dogs or working in my garden. I'm still trying to figure out how to get things to grow in Parker County clay, but it's getting a little better every year. And I've especially enjoyed being involved with the Bluebonnet project this fall at Rotary Plaza, and we're hoping to see some success out of that this spring. I love to travel. And so my greatest extravagance has typically been an annual trip with a group of fellow gardeners, usually to some area with a lot of beautiful places to see in Europe. But these days it's been a lot more limited, a 1 or 2 hour drive around Parker and Wise County and over see what's going on in the rural parts of Tarrant are usually the way that I get my travel fix these days. And like most of us, I think coronavirus has certainly limited my personal activities, but the news for the garden has actually been good. We're fortunate to be one of the outdoor experiences that people feel relatively safe enjoying for a few hours out of the house. So while we ended the year under our projections because of having to be closed for 3 months during the peak season in the spring, for the last 4 months, we've actually seen attendance and revenue that's higher than normal. So we're hoping that will continue and looking forward to the market opening up for all of our friends and fellows who have not enjoyed that privilege. So thank you very much. And I'm very much enjoying being part of the club.
Bob, thank you so much. Again, if you haven't had a chance to see the Botanic Gardens, it is absolutely beautiful. And Bob, we wish you increased patronage very, very soon, and be safe and stay safe. All right, next we have another member spotlight coming to us live from a very enviable place. A spotlighter here, and so you'll get a chance to see Pam Canal. She is coming to us live from her lovely home in Estes Park, Colorado. Pam is the president and CEO of Board Build. She's been a member since May of 2015. Pam, how are things out there in Estes Park right now?
A little chilly, but beautiful. We have full sunshine today. Few snow flurries, and come join me. The positivity rate here is 4%, so I have no reason to leave. Yeah, so thanks so much for the opportunity. I joined Rotary because service above self is a core personal value, and then combined with my desire to always learn from people. I really appreciate the opportunity to learn from my fellow business professionals, including Bill Fairley, every week. So I really do appreciate the camaraderie that we have in this club. As said, when I'm not at Rotary, I'm up here on the mountaintop where I enjoy cross-country skiing and snowshoeing, hiking, and then of course fly fishing with my Rotary High Adventure friends. My greatest, there's Tran, I saw him clapping. I love having him up here. My greatest extravagance before COVID was a good bottle of scotch, and during COVID, it's 2 bottles of scotch not consumed at the same time. And then COVID has drastically affected business for me and for Board Build. We are a startup enterprise, and anybody who started up in good times would know that it is quite a challenge during a pandemic. Rightfully, a lot of resources have been focused on direct service needs. And Board Build operates at the level of systems change. And that is where I remain optimistic that the inequities that have been laid bare by the pandemic will be addressed by innovation and boldness. And I appreciate being in that arena. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam, and thank you. Stay safe. Thank you for always being such a gracious host to our Rotary fly fishing participants. Pam always hosts us, and Board Build is a great organization, so contact Pam for more information on that. Thank you to both Bob and Pam. And in the spirit of spotlighting, we would like to spotlight two of our committees. The first being led by Dr. Joe Michaels. This is the Leading Edge Visit Committee Chair. And YP Rotaract Advisor, Dr. Michaels is the Managing Principal at Solomon Bruce Consulting. Dr. Michaels.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is indeed an opportunity to be able to talk about two programs that we have here at Rotary that are involving young folks that are going to become future Rotarians. Leading Edge, as you're well aware, is one of the programs that Leadership Fort Worth has. And each year we sponsor them sometime in April. Now this year they're doing everything virtually. So I think we'll have a virtual meeting with them. I want to talk about Rotaract for a minute. You see here on the slide, you see here on the slide our officers of our Rotaract Club. You may recall, if you've been with us before, we had a couple of programs to try and get young folks involved. And this is one that we started about a year ago. And I was asked to help provide some advice and consent to these folks. None of them are here today. They're all working, but we've had them here before. They're interested in your ideas, your leadership, and your mentorship. So we're just getting started. We have the Constitution at the board. It'll be approved. The budget has been approved. The checking account has been approved, but we want you to get involved. You want to meet these folks. These are dynamic, sharp, young professionals that are excited to be in Rotary, and hopefully in a couple of years, they'll matriculate from Rotaract into full Rotary Club membership. The rules have changed at Rotaract. You can now be in Rotaract forever. Used to, you had a limit of age 30, but that's not the case anymore. So hopefully you'll see more of them in the next few weeks. They'll be here. They try and come every week if they're able to. Meet them and get to know them. They are very impressive. I will tell you that. As a former college dean, I'm used to working with lots of kids, and these folks are very, very impressive. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Michaels. And surely all of you out there know someone who is a young professional, a next-gen leader, an up-and-comer, maybe someone who has recently moved to the area. Rotaract is a great opportunity to get them plugged right in to Fort Worth and then bring them into Rotary. So if you're interested in more information on Rotaract, please contact Dr. Michaels. Thank you, Dr. Michaels. Okay, the other committee we'd like to spotlight just briefly is our Rotary Minority Business Award Committee. And this is headed up by Master Tech Savvy Guru Chris Jordan, who has done a lion's share of the work on getting this this award up and going. And, you know, one of the things that I love most about this club is that when we ask, you answer. And so on the next slide, I'd like to take just a moment to thank all of the inaugural sponsors of the Minority Owned Business Award. You can see there are many. We'd like to thank our four-way sponsor, Bank of Texas, Rotarian Mark Nurden, our patron sponsors, Dynamic Development Strategies, Rotarian Michelle Krim, Electroacoustics, Mr. Chris Jordan, Fairley Wealth Management, Bill Fairley, Mackenzie Eason, Darren George, Texas Can Academy, Brenda Matamoros Beverage, Think Giving, Kathy Sheffield, Law Offices of Veronica Garza, American National Bank, James Petty, Visit Fort Worth, Bob Jameson, Whitley Penn, Bob Mitchell, Clayton Youth Enrichment, Jason Ray, Southeast Fort Worth Inc., Stacy Marshall, and our media sponsors, Fort Worth Inc. magazine, that's Gina Wigginton, and Metro Report, Shavoyd Hamilton. So thank you to all the sponsors that have stepped up and believed in us, and a round of applause for them, if you would. So on the next slide, you'll see, and this is just a reminder, this award is a recognition award. We are recognizing businesses that exemplify, businesses that demonstrate the 4 pillars of the 4-way test. So we need your help in nominating businesses that meet the criteria that you see on the screen. First and foremost, they're registered in the state of Texas and they're located in Fort Worth, and they are 50% minority owned, at least 50% minority owned, managed or controlled. Now, this last bullet may be surprising because I didn't know this until I really researched it, but we've taken the guidelines from the National Minority Supplier Development Council to define minority group as a member, as an individual who's at least 25% Asian Indian, Asian Pacific, Black, Hispanic, or Native American. So if you know someone that may own a business that would demonstrate these, that meet these criteria and demonstrate the 4-way test, please, please, please grab your phone, because on the next slide, you'll see we've come up with a fancy, handy dandy QR code. If you'd like to be a sponsor, you can literally take your phone out in the room, point it at the screen, just like you're at a restaurant now with the QR codes. And if you're watching online, you can literally point it right at your computer and a website will pop up. So if you're interested in sponsoring, you can do that. And our next QR code on the next slide will show you how to nominate someone. So take a quick snap. You can actually take a picture of this on your phone and save it for later too. But we would love to have more nominees, more applicants, and more sponsors. And thank you, Chris, for and everyone on the committee for leading the charge there. All right, it is now time to introduce our person who will introduce our speaker of the day. That would be Mr. Robert Stearns. And not only can he bench press, not only can he deadlift 400 pounds, and not only is he one of the sharpest dressed guys in Fort Worth, but he is also the Economic Development Director of the City of Fort Worth, who will introduce today's speaker. Mr. Stearns.
Thank you, President Carlo, and thank you, Aurora, for using a pre-pandemic picture of me. I really appreciate that. Again, I'm very honored to introduce our speaker today. When I was asked, I was very thankful because actually Quentin and I go back quite a ways. Our kids went to Country Day together. We spent numerous weekends at youth sports when they were younger, and also worked with Quentin and his team when the Galderman was expanding here in Fort Worth. So glad to be here to announce him as our speaker today. Quentin Cassidy is the Vice President and General Counsel for Galderman Laboratories, which is based in Fort Worth. He has served in that capacity for over 15 years. Headquartered in Lausanne, Switzerland, Galderman is a global leader focused on enhancing the quality of life by delivering science-based solutions for the health of skin, hair, and nails. His duties at Galderman include serving on the leadership team for North America, managing and settling all litigations, negotiating and integrating new products and company acquisitions, and legal, risk management, and facility matters for Galderman's prescription, self-medication, and aesthetic corrective units. Quentin has successfully managed over 25 Hatch-Waxman litigations. So I guess, Quentin, you're going to tell us a little bit about what Hatch-Waxman is all about. Various inter-parties review proceedings and transactional intellectual property disputes. Prior to joining Galderman, he was a partner at Shannon Gracie Ratliff & Miller, LLP, and legal counsel for the University of North Texas Health Science Center at Fort Worth. Quentin is an Oklahoma native and received both his BA and JD from the University of Oklahoma, but we won't hold that against you for any Longhorns that are in the house. So thank you, and I'd like to bring up Quentin Cassidy, Vice President and General Counsel for Galderman.
Thank you very much, Robert. And it's a true pleasure to be here today to talk a little bit about Galderma and to really brag on the city of Fort Worth that has been our home for a really, really long time. And for anybody out there that would be concerned about my University of Oklahoma background, you will notice I did wear a sort of burnt orange UT tie today. So I'm just trying to play, I'm like a good moderate politician. I'm going to play both sides of the fence here. Yeah, what I want to do today is I'm going to talk a little bit, and I don't want to say it because I want to brag about myself by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm going to talk a little bit about I'm going to initially talk a little bit about my background and what brought me to Fort Worth, because I think it's a very telling story that there are so many people in this wonderful community that have similar stories. And I think sometimes we don't think about how interconnected people are in the city of Fort Worth, no matter where they are and what they do. And Robert didn't even mention the fact that he and I go back a lot further even than our kids. We were in Leadership Fort Worth in, 2004, 2005 together. So it's not just a school thing for Robert and I. And Robert, Dennis Shingleton, and Mayor Price have been so helpful to some of the initiatives we've taken at our campus at Alliance. So again, I want to acknowledge that and thank them. Also, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our global organization, and then I'm going to tell some real gossipy stories, because Sean had told me you all like some juicy stories that nobody else might know. So I'm going to tell a couple of gossipy stories about how we really, the origins of the company and our close Fort Worth ties. And I don't think I know Connie, but she brought Jan Norton along, who Jan must be coming to. I noticed you all were talking about facts and fact check. So Jan's one of the other people in this community who probably know those facts. So she'll be able to fact check the stories I'm telling and make sure I'm not saying something I shouldn't. Okay, how do I advance? Okay. I didn't write this title. This was what I got from Sean, so I went with it though. But Galderma Skincare and Update. So, it seems fine to me because we are a skincare company. So can I advance it or? Okay, here, I'll try to. Okay, well, I'll just, this, again, I put this in there not because I want to brag about all the things I've done. And by the way, the intro Robert read is my assistant, I think, may have sent that over. That's actually out of date. It said 15 years. I've actually been there 21 years now. So that is a little bit out of date. But I came to Fort Worth as a really young lawyer from a law firm in West Texas. And I came here because I was able to convince the then general counsel at the University of North Texas in Denton and a gentleman named Dave Richards, who was the president of the Texas College of Osteopathic Medicine, that I could help them set up a legal department in Fort Worth at what is now the UNT Health Science Center. And I'm not quite sure how I was able to convince them of that, because they had a lot more candidates with a lot more higher education experience than I'd had, and a lot more healthcare experience. But I was able to tell a really good story about what they needed, and they took a chance on me as a very young lawyer. And I've been very blessed and fortunate to be in Fort Worth since that happened. And I arrived here in around 1994, I think. I didn't look at that. I'm just working that off the top of my head. And my wife and family and I have obviously been here ever since that time. And it's just been a wonderful story. But what's interesting about that to me and my joining, and then I subsequently was at the UNT Health Science Center a few years as their legal counsel. I went over to Shannon Gracie because they were looking to enhance their healthcare practice. And by that time, I knew all the lawyers and players in the healthcare community here in Fort Worth, which is obviously consolidated and changed a lot now. And so that was of value to them. And subsequently, while at Shannon Gracie, I started doing work for what was then a pretty mom and pop. Jan can get on to me if she doesn't like that description. But what was a little bit of a mom and pop company, Galderma Laboratories, down on Alta Mesa in the top floor with some other property of the Summit Bank building, if anybody remembers that particular property. And I started doing a lot of work for them. And they had one lawyer, and his name was Kurt Grimm, and his wife was Elaine Whitbeck, who was the general counsel of Alcon. So it really got me to doing work for Galderma and Alcon. And that was pretty cool for someone who had just come into a law firm. And Shannon Gracie, needless to say, was very pleased that I was able to bring them that type of work. But subsequently, I then joined Galderma. And as I said, I've been there 21 years now, and it's obviously a different type of company today. But the full circle piece that I'm almost so proud of is that I was recently asked to be on the board of the UNT Health Science Center Foundation. And so it's kind of cool to have come in and been a really junior lawyer there and seen all and worked with that foundation as a lawyer and seen all these really cool people in the community. I'm not nearly that cool, but it's just kind of fun to have come full circle in the city of Fort Worth and have met and worked with so many wonderful people over the years here. Oops, I think it is working. Awesome. What is Galderma? People don't know us, and it's kind of interesting. We are actually a fairly large company now, and we are based up at Alliance. This is actually our United States headquarters. We are, and I'll talk a little bit about the background of the organization, but our ambition is to be the leading dermatology company in the world. That's actually not far from where we are today, because dermatology and healthcare products are generally very fragmented. Lots of big companies have divisions or components that do what we do, but we are the only company with the 3 types of businesses that we have today. There we go. A little bit about Galderman. I'm going to tell some real gossipy stories when I move over to talk more about Fort Worth, but this is kind of our background. We are what is Galderma today started in 1991. It was a joint venture of Nestle and L'Oreal. L'Oreal contributed a research and development center in the south of France. By the way, I've had great business travel over the years. I can't tell you how cool that is. But they contributed an R&D center in the south of France, and Nestle contributed some dermatology assets from effectively a department at Alcon, because Nestle had purchased Alcon in 1977. And within Alcon, people think of it today for its eye care products, et cetera. It also had a dermatology division because it had bought a company called Owen in Dallas that had Cetaphil, which is one of our big consumer brands today. So we were subsequently, a couple other important milestones. We bought a company called QMed. We have an injectable filler line today, and I'll talk about that in a minute, which is Restylane, and we have a Botox competitor. So all of you probably don't need that. Your skin and you look pretty good, so I don't think you'll be needing any injectable fillers, but that's our injectable business. But in 2014, Nestle bought out L'Oreal's interest in Galderma. And if anybody knows behind the scenes, these companies are very interconnected too. Nestle owns a significant part of L'Oreal. So the reality is this was just 2 big multinationals swapping stock and some euros, and nobody really cared except us, because we suddenly had no opportunities to go visit our folks in France as much as we did in the past. So, but anyway, we at that point we became what is known as Nestle Skin Health. If you know Nestle very well, they have a lot of divisions: Nestle Waters, Nestle Health Science. We created the entity called Nestle Skin Health, and we've always been based in Switzerland. We're in Lausanne, even though we had the big U.S. operations here in Fort Worth. But what's been the biggest change probably in my career is that, having been owned by big multinationals that were very bureaucratic and kind of hands-off, in 2019, Nestle put us on the market. Mark Schneider, the CEO at Nestle, was driven to focus on their core businesses by the shareholders and some shareholder activism. And dermatology is a little bit far afield from basically what Nestle's business is. They liked the cash we turned out, but they divested us. And we were purchased in a bit of an auction by a consortium led by EQT. There was a bit of a bidding war between people, even like in Fort Worth, Texas Pacific Group, KKR, all the big boys. So we were actually pretty flattered by that. But that ultimately became what we are today. 2019, we are now an independent company owned by private equity. And it's really fascinating to me, having not been in that environment before. What type of business are we today? This is just give you a few statistics. We're about a $3 billion business globally. Right at 1.6 billion of that is in the United States. And again, these are pretty big numbers, and it's kind of an unknown company and asset in Fort Worth. And I think that's I don't know if that's a testament to good luck or a testament to bad luck. But we have 3 basic businesses. We are in the consumer business. You've probably heard of the Cetaphil brands. Those are the cleansers, moisturizers, the products you can get Walgreens, anywhere virtually, CVS. We have some OTC, other OTC products. We have an aesthetic business. That is the injectable fillers. We have the Restylane line. We have Dysport, which is really the only competitor out there on the market, to Botox, which is a far larger product. It's kind of like Avis, you remember those ads back in the day? We're number 2, but we try harder. That's kind of how we are with Botox. They are such a monopolist in that space. We're number 2, but we feel like we're trying harder. And there's really no better spot, to be honest, if you guys are all business people. When all you can do, when you're just taking market share from somebody that's got that big a market, it's kind of fun, actually. And we have a prescription business. Our bigger brands, we've had some older brands that you may have been familiar with, but they've gone generic over the years with our patent expiry, which is our brands like Metrogel and products like that for acne and rosacea. So, and we have some today that are still, these are our primary brands that have not gone generic over the years. Again, this is something else that Sean mentioned. This is one of our corporate slides, so I won't spend a ton of time on that, but we really had, we've been very blessed about our COVID issues too. We have been able to maintain very strong business during COVID. And I was talking to Robert and Sean a little bit about it at the table. We actually made some decisions and we couldn't figure out who certified you to do that, but we just self-certified as an essential business during the height of the quarantine. And we ran a skeleton crew at our offices on all of our back office functions, but we kept our distribution center and all of our operations up and running. We primarily did that because our Cetaphil brands at the worst of the pandemic had the best months of sales they've ever had. I don't know why, but people hoarded our cleansers and moisturizers almost like toilet paper. You always read in the paper about, the newspapers and the media about toilet paper being hoarded. We could not ship enough Cetaphil to Costco and the big box wholesalers. It was crazy. So our record months, and now it's unfortunate because you always look at month to month, year to year sales, during that March, April period in this year, our consumer people are going to struggle to meet those numbers. So we've been very fortunate. We probably had 6 or 8 COVID positive people in our home office. We obviously, most of them were working at home, but even in that environment, we had 6 or 8, and we had a bit of an outbreak at one of our facilities in France, but we probably had less than 25 or 30 COVID people out of the 4,600 people we have globally. So we've been very, very fortunate in that regard. Again, these are, when I looked at this, I thought, we use these kind of slides to show kind of for more specialists, what some of the molecular items look like, but that almost looks like some of these pictures you see on TV about the COVID, the little thing with the red spores they always show. It looks a little bit like that, but again, we are a very high-tech organization. Our R&D center, we have one now in the city of Fort Worth that we relocated from New Jersey a few years ago, and I'll talk about that. Again, I'm trying to kind of move along here so I can keep you guys on schedule. There we go. This is a slide. I want to talk a little bit about some of the innovations and things we're moving to. If we were a public company, I might not want to talk about some of this stuff, but we're privately held, so I can give away a couple of secrets. But probably the one I would especially call your attention to is down in the bottom, is nemolizumab. Nemo is a biologic development that we are undertaking, and that may sound kind of commonplace because you see lots of biologic treatments anymore for a lot of conditions. But for us, this is huge because we've primarily always been a company with prescription products that are creams, lotions, and oral products, very, very, very safe, very low risk developments. But a biologic is something different. And in the valuation, when the private equity bought us, this was one of the biggest assets in the portfolio because this is a potentially game-changing product for atopic dermatitis, and which is a significant serious skin condition, far more than the acne and rosacea and some of the things we've historically treated. Not sure where I should point this. There we go. Again, we are, and this is a little bit different for us too. We are really more focused, since we've been purchased by private equity, on environmental sustainability. You would think a Nestle would be focused on that, and they are to a degree, but yet when you think about it, one of Nestle's biggest assets is its waters business. And that business alone is probably one of the least environmental sustainability businesses you're ever going to have because of the groundwater that they extract on a regular basis. So if anybody here is from a Nestle person, don't beat me up for that comment. But now that we're away from Nestle, we've really been able to focus a lot on environmental sustainability in our plants and in our operations. Couple things, you know, and I'm going to move to Fort Worth and tell some good gossipy stories here in a second. But we were really proud of some of the patient initiatives that we undertake. This is a picture of a camp we sponsor in California, which is called Camp Wonder, which is a camp for children with serious skin diseases. And these children generally don't go to normal schools. They don't go to proms. They don't get an opportunity to swim in swimming pools because they have really, really serious conditions. And we have long donated Cetaphil products to help them, but these kids get to come for a week and be real kids. They're around other kids that don't make fun of them. They're around professionals, and we send a fleet of people out to this camp to work with these kids. And I haven't been personally, but for the employees that have, it's one of the more meaningful things they've ever done in their lives to see these kids with these serious skin conditions and let them get an opportunity to be normal. And GAIN is a Galderma Aesthetic Injector Training Program where we try to enhance patient safety on injectors. Okay, I want to talk a little, and I'll stay here for a few minutes. How am I doing on time? Okay, I'll stay here for a few minutes. This is our latest building in Fort Worth, and a couple things here that are a little bit of interest. Galderma is a Fort Worth company, even if we have always been based in Switzerland. Our history goes back to this 1981 era when the folks from Alcon brought some marketing assets and became Galderma. But on the flip side, there were some folks from Alcon who went over to do the manufacturing at an independent company. And those were people that are still around, like Paul Dorman and John Fike. You know, Mr. Dorman's had a very successful career, but he started as a man manufacturing Cetaphil products in San Antonio as a former employee of Galderma, and DPT Laboratories was the company that did that manufacturing for Galderma for a lot of years. Galderma in the 80s then subsequently sold some assets to Mr. Fike and Mr. Dorman in Fort Worth, some dermatology products, and that became Health Point, which is down on Vickery and Hewlin. And then obviously that company evolved over time and subsequently became Smith and Nephew, which is there now and is a bustling operation. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of history to Fort Worth that has emanated from Galderma that I don't think many people wholly appreciate. And one other thing I wanted to talk about, you know, this says, why Fort Worth? This should say, why did we stay in Fort Worth? Because we've had a lot of push over the years to move, but obviously Fort Worth is not just the home of many of our employees, it's been such an advantageous, and we're located at Alliance Airport. I don't know if I mentioned that. One thing I want to point out is on the top left there, that is a piece of the Berlin Wall in our home office. And you say, why do you have that? It's just funny because the gentleman from the Chamber of Commerce, who I think is on your roster next week, has been out to our offices to take pictures with that Berlin Wall, and they posted a bunch of things on one of their social media posts about who knew there was a piece of the Berlin Wall in Fort Worth. But we have that not because we have any German history whatsoever, but we had a former CEO in the United States who, while we were in negotiations with a company called Valiant to buy some assets, asked them, hey, do you still have that piece of the Berlin Wall in your offices in Rochester, New York? And I had no, and I'm there, as was the CEO of Valiant and their general counsel, and we're negotiating for some asset purchase deals. And the guy says, I don't know, I've never been there. So about a week later, their general counsel called, and we were getting ready to do construction on this building. Their general counsel called and says, hey, we want to give you all this piece of the Berlin Wall because we're selling that asset. And I thought, oh my gosh, how big is it? And he says, I don't know. If it's a shoebox, I'll FedEx it to you. Like, great. Well, $3,000 later for transportation, I had to have the architects, facilities is in my group in real estate. I had to have the architects redesign the lobby because our CEO at that time was so happy to have the piece of the Berlin Wall. So it's quite a novelty item in our offices. And we've gotten a little bit of funny publicity about it, but we have absolutely no German heritage, but we have a piece of the Berlin Wall. Locally, we are not as well known probably locally in our support of organizations, but we do involve ourselves in a lot of activities. We are big supporters of various breast cancer initiatives, and we also have a 5K run down on the Trinity that Mayor Price always comes out and runs with us. That supports Camp Wonder, and they always send a few of the kids that go to Camp Wonder. So I'll figure out a way to send out a solicitation to this group about our 5K. And again, this is just some statistics on kind of what we have here. We have 4 buildings in Fort Worth. This is probably more meaningful. The next slide. Next slide. There it is. This is our campus. You probably don't exactly know where we are unless you're driving to Oklahoma, but we are just south of the Texas Motor Speedway and on I-35. That's the access road to I-35 there at the bottom. And the newest building is the one at the back with the long walkway. And we do have 270,000 square feet. We have about somewhere between 400 and 500 people pre-COVID on our campus at all times. And Jan Norton over there was involved in the building of the initial building, which is the one kind of in the middle there on the left. So, but again, that's our campus and at Alliance Airport. And we've had a wonderful relationship with both, as I mentioned earlier, Robert and Councilman Shingleton and everyone else associated with Alliance Airport over the years. They have been nothing but supportive of the initiatives we've needed to do to keep this business in Fort Worth. And there's just no chance, I think, at this point in time we'll ever leave. We've invested way too much money in this campus. So anyway, that was a really quick. I could probably spend a lot of time on a lot of those topics, but I don't know if anybody has any questions. Yes, sir.
Did you guys consider at any point getting into the race to find a cure for COVID?
No. The question was, did we get involved in the race to find a cure for COVID? But we did not. Vaccines are far afield from anything we have any capability to touch upon.
Time for maybe one more question.
Yes, sir.
Just a little testimony. You mentioned your involvement with breast cancer. My wife is a breast cancer survivor, and her physicians recommended your products for her to use as she was going through the recovery process. So thank you.
You're very welcome. If everybody heard that, but thank you very much. People don't think about cancer other than skin cancer, but a lot of the treatments that are utilized for patients with cancer of all type are very drying. And a lot of physicians outside of dermatology recommend especially our topical Cetaphil products for that. So thank you very much for having me.
Stick around for just a second. Well, Quentin, on behalf of Rotary, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for choosing Fort Worth. Thank you for staying in Fort Worth. Thank you for being a major economic driver and a major employer in Fort Worth. For Camp Wonder, wasn't that heart? I mean, that was so touching what you do and your commitment to not just sales, which I'm glad that you had a good pandemic. I mean, that's, you know, you do good things, put good things out into the universe, and good things will come back to you. And I think we can all agree that Galderma exhibits all 4 pillars of the Rotary 4-way test. Quentin, it's a tradition of the Rotary Club of Fort Worth to donate a book to the Fort Worth Public Library. And we have a copy of the book plate for you in here that we put in the book. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me thank Quentin Cassidy. Thank you, Quentin. I really appreciate it. That was great. Thank you very much. And thank you, Sean Snell, as always, our program chair extraordinaire, for always bringing us such great quality programs. Sean, thank you very much. All right, a few closing announcements to round us out here. Don't forget, we have virtual meeting sponsorships available. Should you be interested, contact our lovely chair, Ms. Shanna Saldana, for more details. We also want to remind you it's time to pay your dues. We've had a great renewal rate, and folks, we have raised more money for the endowment than we have in the Children's Fund, especially, than we have in years. So thank you to all of you for sticking with us. Don't forget, next week, as our guest speaker just mentioned, we have our newest member of our club, Mr. Brandon Gengelbach. And if you've ever seen Brandon speak, his enthusiasm is absolutely infectious. So we are so looking forward to seeing the big things that are happening for the Fort Worth Chamber. So Brandon, we look forward to seeing you. If you're interested in coming, don't forget to RSVP so we can be sure and make a meal for you and have a seat for you. We just want to thank all of you for being here as we pull our friends over from Zoom. Everybody online, we miss you, we love you, we thank you for sticking with us. For all the guests that were with us online and here, we really appreciate you being here. We can see some faces. Everyone's awfully still today. There they are. Give them a wave, guys. Everybody on Zoom, wave to everybody in the room. Thank you so much. It is 12:57. I hope that you stay for an extra few minutes and fellowship with your friends. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.